What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show, Ecker Geopolitics. It's April 20th, 2026, and today we're covering all of the massive news that happened over the weekend. Lots of big news. As we can see, the China-linked route exposed after the U.S. seized Iran-bound ship with suspected drug use cargo. Yeah, the United States seized an Iranian ship in the Strait of Hormuz today. That happened. Pretty big, I'd say. And to be quite honest about it, who knows what's going to happen next? But we're going to cover all of it. We're going to cover all of the Iran war updates and everything that's going on with that. Lots of big news. We're going to be covering all of these different headlines. U.S. struck, seized Iranian flagship Tosca in Gulf of Oman, Trump says. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance fired several rounds at the engine room of the Iranian flag cargo ship in Tosca, disabling that vessel in the Gulf of Oman, President Donald Trump and U.S. Central Command said. Marines later boarded and seized the Tosca. The U.S. has been operating a naval blockade of ships entering and exiting Iranian ports since last week. Iran fired upon commercial vessels attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz earlier. Then we had an article from Al Jazeera. Iran war live, uncertainty over talks. Trump insists deal to come quickly, but then again, we have all of this activity, right? Iran says it has no plans to send negotiators to Pakistan for a new round of talks after the U.S. seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. So, Trump wanted to send J.D. Vance for negotiations. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening now, right? Still, President Donald Trump says the U.S. team led by Vice President J.D. Vance is on its way to Islamabad. So, who knows if that's going to happen? 2 dead following the Israeli drone strike in southern Gaza. Iranian media reports that only 3 ships have passed through Hormuz in 12 hours. So lots of huge updates. Iranian vessels transits Strait of Hormuz despite U.S. blockade, state media says. And then when we look at all of the other updates over here on Glint, as we look at the maps, lots of big information, right? So Apple said on Monday that John Ternus is succeeding Tim Cook as CEO. Yes, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, is stepping down. Also big news. What does that mean? Is this going to be a good thing or a bad thing, right? And this is the exact tweet right here, the exact article as it loads up here. Yeah, what do you guys think about all of this? I think we're going into a lot of big developments, but it's obvious that this war with Iran isn't going to end anytime soon, right? It's obvious that everything we're seeing now, it's only the beginning. Apple said on Monday that John Ternus is succeeding Tim Cook as CEO, with Cook assuming the role of executive chairman on September 1st. And there he is. So that's the new guy, a major business leader willing to step aside at 65. What's wrong with him? We must fight the Ruth Bader Biden salutary virus in all areas of work. I'm reading the comments. Mandatory retirement ages everywhere. Yeah, look at that. So what do you guys think about this new CEO of Apple, right? But even beyond that, there's even more news. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff, but viewer discretion is advised because we're going to cover some war footage now of the war happening in Israel, in Lebanon, new footage that just came out of Ukraine, and we're going to be covering things that happened in Iran, different power plants that have been attacked, all of these things, right? So this is an IDF soldier that stole a puppy from a mother in Lebanon. They find joy in these sorts of things, and it seems like we have been seeing these videos pretty commonly, and they never seem to have any remorse, right? Never seem to have any remorse. Why is that? So again, look at this video and tell me what you guys think. I mean, honestly, I think it's quite shocking to the conscience, as they would say. Yeah, look at that. They're going to make it hard to load so that way we can't watch it. Will it load? Will it load? It was working perfectly before the stream, but now all of a sudden it's just not going to work. Let's see. Will the next one work? Will the next video work? It's always going to be something. We'll go back to that video in a moment. Israeli army sets fire to the homes of residents in southern Lebanon. So what if this was your home? As I always like to say in this show, what if this was your house? What if this was your neighborhood, the street you grew up on? What if this was where you grew up? What if this was where you and your family grew up? This is Lebanon. Israel is doing this to Lebanon. This is exactly what they have already done to Gaza. So it's quite sad to see, quite shocking. But at the end of the day, it's it's very telling to the society that we live in. Hold on, we got to capture this screen again here. There we go. This is the video footage we were watching. So again, this is Lebanon. What if this was your home? What if this was where you live today? What if this was your home? Pretty shocking to the conscience, I would say. And I think it's shocking most people because nobody knows what the IDF is willing to go to, the lengths that they're willing to go to accomplish these missions. And so from what it looks like Hezbollah, it has been standing up against, Israel, obviously, but it doesn't look like they're doing too well. Looks like the United States. Without the United States, though, Israel would be having quite the fight. So this is a Ukrainian soldier evacuated. They're evacuating their wounded comrades under Russian artillery fire and drone strikes. Scary stuff. So this is real war. This is what's happening in Ukraine. I'm going to keep the sound off just because there's music playing. I don't want to get copyright. But I look at this and I just think, wow, we could be so much more. And this is what we've allowed to happen as the United States. And yes, I do blame the United States because ultimately this was Biden who got us into this war, the Ukraine war. I remember that vividly. I was at Planet Fitness when this war started. At Planet Fitness when Ukraine struck the Kremlin. This was years ago. And I remember all of it. And and then we ended up in a war all of a sudden for this, for the rare earth elements, for the lithium. But really and ideally, this is what we're seeing. Lots of drone warfare on the ground. This is really the big thing of what we've been seeing in this entire war. Drone footage. Again, viewer discretion is advised. If you're watching this, if this is too much, you feel free to tune out for a second. We'll be getting through some of these war footage updates here, and then we're going to look into the news. We're going to look at some politics and how all of these videos are impacting the rest of the world. How all of this entire war is impacting the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the United States, of course, and how this affects the entire planet. Humanitarian, all of it. So this is sad to see. This is the result of a war that, again, these guys never wanted to fight. They were thrown into white vans, these Ukrainian men, and now they're forced to fight this war. So who says that this doesn't happen to the United States? What happens when America is thrown into vans to go and fight and die for Israel? That's my problem here, right? And again, let's go try to look at this other piece of footage. Is this finally playing now? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Try to update it here. Again, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you're tuning in on this Monday, 7:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here we go. IDF soldier steals puppy from mother in Lebanon. They find joy in these sorts of things. So I don't like to play these videos, but again, what if this was your mother and her dog just got stolen by these people? At any day, this could become the United States, I feel. Because if we have politicians who aren't willing to stand against it, that's just, again, maniacal. And these people laugh like it's a good time, like it's funny. It's honestly insane. These people need to be completely put in their place. Justice needs to be served. Imagine if that was your dog. Imagine if that was your dog. How evil is that? How do we just sit back and watch this, And the worst part is I try to make shorts of this, and I get, none of those YouTube shorts ever get seen. Everything where I cover Lebanon, anytime I cover Lebanon, anytime I cover Gaza, anytime I cover any of these things that we're seeing, all of these pieces of video footage, YouTube Shorts never puts it out. Just never puts it out. Puts out any other video I post pretty much, except if we're talking about Lebanon, Gaza, or any of those conversations. So again, that's the Ukrainian war. We covered that. This is the massive blaze at one of India's biggest petrochemical refineries, the HPCL, Rajasthan, Padra. Fourth major oil/gas incident in 5 days. April 15th, we saw Aviva Energy Geelong refinery fire in Australia. April 16th, we saw deadly gas pipeline explosions in Hyderabad, Pakistan, with 8 killed. On April 18th, we saw fires at the Russian oil refineries. Can't pronounce that. And seizure hit by drone strikes. And now this. Massive fire at the HPCL, Rajasthan. One of India's biggest petrochemical projects. So, what do you guys think about that? Pretty scary stuff. This is the result of war. This is what we get. And it's very sad to see. On the flip end, we also have attacks happening in Romania right now. Huge explosion rocks thermal power plant in Bucharest, Romania. It's pretty big news. And again, there's another shot of that. Ukrainian leadership rejects Trump's plea to stop strikes. Again, of course, you have the memes. Lots of big stories, though. Lots of big news on this war. Very sad to see. China has announced their new Y-30 transport aircraft to rival American C-130 Hercules. What do you think about this? So let's check this out. This is an update from Alex Barnico.
Today, China
Be sure to
came
give
out
him
and
a follow.
unveiled the Chinese Y-30 transport aircraft. It's a direct competitor to the American famous C-130 Hercules. The only difference is that China claims this Y-30 is way better, and to be fair, the stats do prove that. China wants the countries of the world to start buying this Chinese transport aircraft compared to the American C-130 like they currently do. They say this Y-30 is not only bigger, faster, costs less, has better materials it's made out of, but it can also transport much heavier loads. The C-130 can only carry about 20 tons, whereas this Chinese Y-30 can carry 30 tons and go for longer distances.
Oh boy.
And so really, there's many incentives for other countries to buy this Chinese transport aircraft compared to the worst C-130, the American version. Not to mention China kind of ironically made it in the same shape as the C-130, I guess just kind of to rub it in the face of America. That's probably the only reason.
So.
But still, this is really
steal
quite a
all
big
of our
deal, and
tech.
it's definitely going to change how other countries deal with America. Today, China came out and
I would say so. I would say so. I definitely see that happening. How other countries are going to change with America. I think, at the end of the day, I think different countries are just going to stand against America and Israel. I was going to say the United States of Israel. That's how common this conversation is becoming. Not good. Outrage. Americans are demanding answers after the New York Times obtained and published secret internal memos from the U.S. Supreme Court, marking the third major leak from the High Court in the last 4 years, which is really unheard of from the U.S. Supreme Court. So let's take a listen to this video. Check this out.
About how he had reassigned an opinion from Justice Alito to himself because of the so-called flag controversy that was happening at his home at the time, if you remember that one. And so we're looking at 3 major leaks over the last 4 years, which is really unheard of for the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay, so why?
It's a great question, Sandra. And look, I think these leaks tend to go in one direction. And it is to undercut what the conservative wing of the Supreme Court is doing or is in the process of doing. Certainly that was the case with Dobbs. And we saw what happened there when that decision was leaked. The justices faced violence at their homes. Attorney General Garland, unfortunately, didn't enforce the law at the time that would have stopped the protesters from doing some of the things they were doing around their homes. We remember that time. It was really troubling. It was the same time where that man attempted to murder Justice Brett Kavanaugh. It had some real world possible harms
that's a very real
that could
thing.
have occurred. And so why is it happening? Look, I think there are some disgruntled people that elections have consequences, and a Republican president has made some pretty conservative picks for the Supreme Court, and there are people who are unhappy with that, so they're willing to undercut and bypass the traditions and protocols of the Supreme Court and endanger its future, really, by leaking out things from that building to the general public who don't have the context and are certainly undercutting the public's trust just in the integrity of the institution by doing so.
You got to wonder who is leaking this stuff. And I remember back to the Dobbs decision, it seemed like it was going to be a pretty cut and dry case to get to the bottom of who did it, because everything there in terms of the Xerox machines and email, it's all coded and tagged, and you could probably easily find it out. But the investigation went nowhere. So whoever's doing this knows how to cover their tracks.
So I think it's funny that they're going to do whatever they can to find a whistleblower or anybody that has anything to do with U.S. information like this, but then they're not going to go and they're not going to go after Huckabee when he literally gave nuclear secrets to Jonathan Pollard, who is a spy for the state of Israel and Mossad. Very interesting. Senator Mike Huckabee, just nothing happens to him. If you're serving the state of Israel as a United States citizen or a congressman, then good job. You're doing your job. If you're stealing info and intellectual property from Americans and selling it to the Israelis, good job. That is not treason. But if you are basically going to, allow all of this as the president and not hold anybody accountable, then there you go. Then your hands are pretty much clean, right?
Certainly right. And Molly Hemingway has a book coming out on Justice Alito, and she talks about how, according to her reporting, that some of the liberal justices were slow walking their dissents as the Dobbs decision was being written, and it had been written, and they were slow walking it despite the threats of violence against their conservative justices, which I thought was quite interesting reporting. But John, back to the original question. This piece in the New York Times, first of all, I had to chuckle at the quote, secret memos. You mean confidential memos, which is what it's supposed to be. Justices have to be able to speak in candor in order to have decisions and do what they do. And it's a general criticism of this thing called the shadow docket, which is the emergency docket. It's how the Supreme Court deals with emergency requests.
I'm familiar with that.
What are emergency requests? Well, we have seen the lower courts over and over again blocking the Trump administration from every single thing they try to do. They put a halt on it. So one option that the Trump administration has had, and also previous administrations have had, is to go straight to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court, can you unblock the lower court from blocking us so that the policy goes into place as the case is litigated?
So they're asking the Supreme Court to make a law to where they will be able to unblock any laws that are blocking, you know, people from from people being able to trade information safely. Okay. Yeah, and that's not going to get leaked.
On the merits. So
very interesting the way these people think, right?
In this particular administration, this Trump administration right now, the Supreme Court has done that for the administration, I think about 20 times. I think people are upset about that. And so what this piece does is say, well, guess what? You know who created this whole thing? It's Chief Justice Roberts when he tried to stop, when he did stop President Obama from implementing, you know, his big clean power plan, which was a big deal to him. And so I think the point of the New York Times in the leaking of this and the presenting of the story is to say, look, they were willing to stop executive power when they didn't like it. But here, when it comes to Donald Trump, they're allowing him and his policies to go.
Well, this can't be.
So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you have to ask yourself who has control over the Supreme Court? You know, who has control over SCOTUS? Who is making the decisions? Who is blackmailing SCOTUS? Who is threatening SCOTUS? Is it really Americans? Is it the CIA? Or might it be a foreign actor like Israel? I think that might be the more reasonable possibility. And then you also have a lot of the Democrat Congress people who are also seem to be very anti-American and pro-communism, right? We are fighting a multi-domain war here. BBC confirms a consistent pattern of massive financial spikes occurring just minutes before Donald Trump makes market-moving announcements. People close to Trump are making huge profits. Are you?
And what about
Check
the
this
White
out.
House? What has the response been from the White House to these allegations?
No response when I contacted them. Spokespeople in the past have made it clear that they do strenuously deny any form of insider trading involving the White House. There was one who told another outlet last month it didn't tolerate any administration official illegally profiteering off of insider knowledge. There's always the possibility, Sally, that traders are getting better at predicting when Trump will make a U-turn or market conditions signal he might intervene in some way.
Well,
Traders
yeah.
get ahead of that. You can't rule that out. But it's the consistency.
Well, let's talk about Howard Lutnick. Why did Howard Lutnick benefit so well on 9/11 or after 9/11 when Larry Silverstein made $4.5 billion, I believe, net after taxes, the insurance for both buildings to fall? Yeah, Larry Silverstein just so happened to miss work that day on 9/11. Just so happened to miss. Same thing with Howard Lutnick. They both missed work on this one day, 9/11. Very weird timing. But, you know, no problem. And they actually ended up making quite a pretty penny. But good for them, right? They played the game. They just studied the markets, right? They just knew what they were doing. They just really were well-educated and informed. They definitely had no insider knowledge of the Twin Towers falling or the dancing Israelis, the controlled demolition, all of these things. Yeah, they had no idea, right? Yep, we're just supposed to believe that. And same thing with Howard Lutnick and, you know, the people who are benefiting from all of this. It's no different, people. It's no different at all.
Of these spikes, and it's how often it happens before Trump says something that's got people raising eyebrows.
And again, Scott Bessant. You know, did you know that Scott Bessant was behind the entire 1992 British pound collapse? He collapsed, like crashed the entire British pound with George Soros. He was a part of that, Scott Bessant. Yeah, he's working for Donald Trump. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that very interesting? Isn't that an interesting connection we all have there? Very, very, very interesting to me. So, what do you guys think? I sure think it's just definitely something to talk about. So leave your comments, leave your thoughts on what you think about that. Breaking, President Donald Trump has just signed an executive order invoking the Defense Production Act following increasing energy prices. Oh, sweet. Increasing energy prices. We love that. Isn't that awesome? But I did say oil was going to go over $200 a barrel. And I think that is going to happen. At the very least, it's going to balance between probably $100 and $120. And that's at the bare minimum if things go perfectly. That's my predictions as an analyst, as an investor myself, as somebody who's been in real estate, who's been in crypto. I've made money in lots of, different ways, experimented in different money-making strategies and models and things like that, acquisitions. And I can tell you that what we're looking at is definitely a potential of a $200 plus oil price. So let's look at this.
Production Act to provide federal funds to a range of
This is huge.
projects. This comes as Americans deal with rising gas prices and oil prices.
And pause.
Deal with rising
Because
gas prices
buffering.
and oil prices.
Oh, they know I'm live streaming. You see, that's the point. So when I'm live streaming, it has to make sure that the video does not load. Because somebody's watching my live stream and they're saying, no, stop that video from playing.
To provide
Wonder who
federal
that could
funds
be.
to a range of energy projects. This comes as Americans deal with rising gas prices and oil prices.
And that video is not going to work. Yeah, it looks like we are being monitored. And they know that we're talking about things maybe they don't want us to be talking about. Big crypto update here. SEC Chair Paul Atkins says the agency has ended regulation through enforcement against crypto. And just waiting for it to play. Nothing's loading.
Pivoted
There we go.
from the old practice of regulation through enforcement and the opaqueness of the agency, as it, for example, with crypto, as you mentioned, that was job one.
This Clarity app
to
needs
focus
to
on
happen.
that. And so we've pivoted from the old practice of regulation
big
through
statement.
enforcement and the opaqueness of the agency, as it, for example, with crypto, as you mentioned, that was job one to focus on that. And so
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely big news for crypto. For XRP in particular, stable coins, and then Bitcoin also will probably benefit. Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, XLM, I think all of these tokens. Cardano right now has been facing a little bit of a struggle in crypto. Anyways, on to some more breaking news. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance fired several rounds at the engine room of the Iranian-flagged cargo ship Tosca, disabling the vessel in the Gulf of Oman, President Donald Trump and U.S. Central Command said. So, big story, and that's over here. What do you guys think about this? I mean, honestly, what do you think this means for the United States? The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance fired several rounds at the engine room of the Iranian-flagged cargo ship Tosca, disabling the vessel in the Gulf of Oman, President Donald Trump and the U.S. Central Command said. Marines later boarded and seized the Tosca. The U.S. has been operating a naval blockade of ships entering and exiting Iranian ports since last week. Iran fired upon commercial vessels attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz earlier. U.S. President Donald Trump speaks to the media before boarding Air Force One on his way to Virginia at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, U.S., April 10th, 2026. U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer fired on a disabled Iranian-flagged cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman before Marines boarded and seized the vessel, President Donald Trump said on Sunday. Trump said that the U.S. Spruance intercepted the Iranian ship, the Tosca, and gave them a fair warning to stop. So that's a pretty big story, and that's kind of what's happening with that. And again, here's a little bit more on that story. The vessel Tosca remains in U.S. custody as American forces continue inspecting what maritime security sources told Reuters is likely dual-use cargo, materials that can serve both civilian and military purposes. Shipping data shows the Tosca made multiple recent stops in Zhuhai, a major part in southern China, before transiting throughout Southeast Asia and heading towards Iran, part of the pathway analysts say has helped Iran sustain trade flows despite the U.S.'s interjection. The seizure comes as part of the broader U.S. effort to enforce a naval blockade on Iran aimed at pressuring Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global shipping lane. The ship had last stopped in Port Klang, Malaysia, April 12th, and was en route to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas when it was intercepted, a U.S. official told Fox News. The Tosca was seized in Gulf of Oman, just outside of the Strait of Hormuz, as it was approaching Iranian waters on Sunday. A ship is seen passing through, in this photo right here, the Strait of Hormuz during a 2-week temporary ceasefire between the United States and Iran on April 8, 2026. Analysts say attempting to transit amid an active U.S. naval passage suggests the cargo may have been a priority. It tried to run the blockade, which seems like a particularly foolish thing to do, which would seem to indicate that there was something aboard that ship that they really perhaps needed in Iran, said Ray Powell, director of Sea Light, a maritime transparency initiative, told Fox News Digital. Powell said that the vessel's route through Malaysia is notable, describing waters near Singapore's Strait as infamous for ship-to-ship transfers due to relatively weak enforcement, a tactic that can make cargo movements harder to trace. He added that the cargo ship's stops in China raised questions about the origin of its cargo, though what was on the board remains unknown. And again, the Tosca's port calls on China amid prior reporting identifying shipments of dual-use materials from Chinese ports to Iran, though there is no public evidence tying the cargo's vessel to any specific supplier. China on Monday criticized the interception, with Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiquan, I can't pronounce these names, warning the situation in the Strait of Hormuz remains sensitive and complex, signaling potential diplomatic friction as attention grows around trade routes linking Chinese ports to Iran. U.S. forces intercepted the vessel after it ignored repeated warnings to stop, according to the U.S. Central Command. The Tosca was warned for roughly 6 hours that it was violating the blockade before the guided missile destroyer Spruance ordered the crew to evacuate the engine room and fired several rounds into that section of the ship, disabling the propulsion. U.S. Marines then boarded that vessel and took control without the reported resistance. The Strait of Hormuz blockade, announced after negotiations with Iran broke down, target vessels entering or leaving Iranian ports, is designed to cut off maritime trade while avoiding direct strikes on Iranian territory. It is part of a wider military campaign known as the Operation Epic Fury, launched in late February following U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran. The operation has focused on degrading Iran's military capabilities while using economic pressure to force concessions at the negotiation table. The strategy has unfolded alongside a fragile ceasefire brokered through talks involving Pakistan, which is set to expire later this week. U.S. officials had hoped the pressure campaign, including the blockade, would push Iran towards the Strait of Hormuz, advancing broader negotiations. But the interception of the Tosca has underscored how quickly tensions can escalate, raising new questions about whether the ceasefire will hold and whether maritime enforcement actions could derail ongoing diplomatic efforts. China, which has positioned itself as a mediator in the conflict and maintains deep economic ties with Iran, has already signaled concern over the seizure, warning that such actions could complicate efforts to stabilize the region and reopen key shipping routes. The Chinese embassy could not immediately be reached for comment. So, Donald Trump's making moves. Doesn't seem to really care much about what the rest of the world thinks, right? 1 hour ago, CENTCOM shared images of forces intercepting the Iranian flagged vessel. So that, again, this is a huge story, and this was the exact tweet of that. Going to it right now. If you like this information, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, support this news, support the content, support the analysis. We try to redistribute a lot of this content into YouTube Shorts, but we are trying to grow this channel into a serious analytical channel where we analyze the X algorithm specifically, and where we're really kind of not just analyzing the X algorithm, but we're analyzing not just the media even or news. We're analyzing how these things actually work, how it all operates, how the signal flows, how does the information flow, right? Who's slowing down the information? Who's speeding it up? Who's allowing it to exist? U.S. forces patrol the Arabian Sea near MV Tosca April 20th as the Iranian flagged vessel's container cargo is searched after U.S. Marines boarded and seized the ship when it attempted to violate U.S. Naval Blockade. So big story there. And again, we have a lot of people in the comments not too happy about this. Are you truly negotiating with these killers? The biggest terrorists on earth, without a doubt. The world would be a far safer place for ordinary people without these criminals as their allies. The approach of yours, making deals and reaching understandings in the Islamic Republic, is exactly the same failed policy that Joe Biden and Barack Obama pursued. So that's actually partially true, but I think the main terrorist threat here is definitely not Iran. It's definitely more Israel. Who is allowing the Muslims into your country, right? Who's allowing all of this to happen, brother? You know, it empowers the regime, weakens America's position, and betrays the Iranian people who are suffering under their tyranny. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, I disagree with that. I think Israel is the greatest threat of terror on the planet. I think because of Israel is why we're dealing with so much, mass migration from Arabs and Muslims, whether it be in the United States or whether it be in Europe. So, any of these problems, and same thing with Canada, by the way, Canada's enduring the same exact issues here. So in my opinion, it's not really looking too hot. Again, the comment section is pretty clear as day. Stop killing kids for Israel. And then you look at these charts right here. Look at this. Again, do you support or oppose the U.S. going to war with Iran? Strongly, somewhat support. Again, MAGA hardliners are the only ones that are about 87%. Okay, and then the U.S. average right now is about at 24%. That's according to the More in Common study, the survey of 1,469 U.S. adults and 1,901 Trump voters conducted from March 30th to April 6th, 2026. Okay, anti-woke conservatives. Then you have, that's like the second place group. And then third place is your all-Trump 2024 voters. So, yeah, nobody's really in support of this. The reluctant right is 26, and then the U.S. average is 24. Where do I stand, Brendan Ecker? Well, I am more on the, I'm in the purple, I would say. And out of these categories, I would say I am more in the anti-woke conservatives. Probably more of an anti-woke conservatives. I'm more America first. I wouldn't consider myself MAGA because, everything Trump is running on today is not what he ran on in 2016 that got him elected. Right? Look at the comment section here. People are just livid. We don't need to negotiate with terrorists. Iran needs to be held accountable, and the threat needs to be eliminated for decades. Some people are saying that and buying into the propaganda. But you look at all of this, and it's like, you have some people, really believing that Israel is the main threat here, and then you got a lot of people believing that, Iran is the real threat. So I would say a lot of these people that are pro-Iran war here are definitely more pro-Trumpers and people who are going to go ride or die for Trump, really. Okay, so that's pretty big. Lots of big stories tonight. Lots of big stories. What do you think was the biggest stories over the weekend?
Whirling over who is leaking information from this.
We watched that already. Covered that story. I think we covered this. Just got to find our spot now, right? Moving fast through the news. Again, what do you guys think is going to happen with the Clarity Act and crypto? What do you guys think is going to happen with the Iran war? All of it. This is from Eric Dougherty. Just in, Senator Leader John Thune is not considering the Save America Act passing into law anymore, Representative Anna Paulina Luna just said. Just so Americans know, after 2 weeks in recess, John Thune is no longer considering the Save America Act. This would be total betrayal. Like President Trump keeps saying, Republican senators need to say enough is enough and go for gold on policies 80% plus of American support. Thune should surge the Save America Act back to the floor so it can actually pass with no more vacations. It's done. So I was curious because this does seem to interfere with the Clarity Act and when this is going to be done on the House floor. So does this interfere with the Clarity Act and when Congress plans to host this date for debate and passing the bill? So let's just see. I was curious here because last time I checked, it was because of the Save America Act, and it was conflicting with the timing of the Clarity Act. Now, they told us that the end of April was going to be the House floor and basically or the Senate floor hearing, and that time slot was going to only go to either crypto or it was going to either go to essentially the Save America Act. So it's like one or the other, apparently. So honestly, what I think they're doing, based on what it looks like now, it looks like that they're probably going to choose the Clarity Act first over this. But then again, they want to pass this first, so that way, again, with crypto, you won't have all this fraud happening with crypto like we're seeing because of all of this. So just to confirm, no, the situation with the Save America Act does not substantially interfere with the Clarity Act. Substantially interfere with the Clarity Act on a policy level. They address completely unrelated topics. Yeah, we know that. We want to know when there are. However, there have been significant procedural, scheduling interferences in the opposite direction. This is what's going to stop the Clarity Act, okay? So a lot of people aren't talking about this. It's like you either get one or the other, it seems. The high priority push for the Save America Act, Trump's declared number one legislative priority, which the House passed and which several majority leaders like John Thune brought to the floor in mid-March 2026, has directly delayed the Clarity Act. Trump publicly stated he would not sign any other legislation until SAVE passes in strong form, and Thune explicitly prioritized SAVE other crypto bills, noting in March that clarity was unlikely to advance before April. This froze the Senate calendar, with Democrats filibustering SAVE and the procedural fight consuming time. The tweet's criticism of Thune dropping support for SAVE after recess, making it non-viable, could potentially reduce that delay for clarity. If SAVE loses momentum, it might free up floor time and ease Trump's hold on other bills. But as of April 20th, 2026, this hasn't materialized yet. The Clarity Act was recently pulled from the Senate schedule for the week of April 20th, has no markup date set in the Senate Banking Committee, and analysts say its odds of passing in 2026 are slim unless it clears committee by the end of April. No specific date is currently planned for Congress to resume debate or vote on either bill. Save America Act. Okay, so let's listen to this. Going deeper here, we're trying to decipher, how this impacts the Clarity Act, the scheduling for the Clarity Act, when these important things for crypto, and how this kind of ties into the Save America Act, which is for voting rights, right? If received a procedural vote and extended floor debate in mid-March 2026, announced by Thune on March 12th for the following week, with weekend sessions and ongoing arguments into late March, but it stalled without passage due to the Democratic filibuster and lack of 60 votes. No new debate or vote has been announced for April or later. Clarity Act. Still stuck in committee with no markup or floor debate scheduled. Recent reports as of mid-April 2026 confirm it was removed from the immediate Senate agenda. So we're not getting the Clarity Act, and this is going to be rough. And it faces tight deadlines tied to the overall 2026 legislative calendar. So again, if you care about crypto, that Save America Act is going to be getting in the way of the Clarity Act in regards to scheduling, which means if they can't schedule the hearing, then there's going to be no Clarity Act, because they've said that if they can't do it in April 2026, then it's going to have to wait till 2027. So that's probably what I think is going to happen, considering that Trump takes superiority over the Save America Act over this. Legislative schedules in Congress are fluid and often shift based on priorities, filibusters, and negotiations. Already includes recesses and competing bills. Trump continues to tie SAVE to broader priorities, while crypto advocates are pushing for clarity to move independently. You can track both in Congress.gov and blah, 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 blah. So that's the situation with this, and this is what a lot of people are saying. Get him out. The House can attach it to FISA. No Save America Act, no FISA. So this is kind of what everybody else is saying here. So what do you guys think about Donald Trump? Do you guys approve of Donald Trump? Do you guys approve of what he's been doing in Congress, as the president? Do you guys approve of, his movements toward the Clarity Act? What do you guys believe in first? What would you guys have passed first? The Save America Act or the Clarity Act? When we look at this, who knows what's going to happen, but it's not looking good for crypto. It's not looking good for anything, really. It doesn't look like Congress has a plan for literally anything. Like always, right? But they'll tell you that they do, and that they'll tell you that it's 1 week out, or 2 weeks out, or 3 weeks out. Horrible. Eric Doherty with another post. Marco Rubio just made moves on Cuba. Secretary Rubio surged a delegation that met with grandson of Fidel Castro and made demands like opening up the internet and releasing more prisoners. Let's take a listen to this.
Into a major national security threat if Cuba's leaders are. Secretary Marco Rubio dispatched a delegation of senior officials to negotiate in Havana. Last week, a U.S. government plane landed on the island nation's soil for the first time since 2016. As the U.S. fuel blockade worsens an already dire humanitarian crisis for Cuba's people, U.S. officials believe there is an opening to push communist leaders out.
So again, as all of this is happening, the thumbnail of this YouTube episode, what did we title it? We titled it Iran War Updates. Why? Because there's so much going on. And again, we have the Gaza war. We have the Gaza genocide. We'll just call it that, because that's what it is. The Gaza Holocaust is what we should call it, because that's what the Jews did. They committed a Holocaust on the people of Gaza. We have the Lebanese Holocaust, which not there yet, but I think that's on its way there. They want to do the same thing that they did to Gaza to Lebanon. And then we have Ukraine. We have that war happening. We have the Strait of Hormuz, the United States versus Israel. The United States and Israel versus Iran. Right? So Strait of Hormuz, and then you have China and Russia both fighting in that war. And then Russia also is fighting against Ukraine simultaneously. So you have all these different fights happening simultaneously right now. And the only way we can really control that is if we actually have a grasp on the future and our leaders. And again, while all of this is happening, we have this thing happening with Cuba now. President Trump is committed to pursuing a diplomatic solution if possible, but will not let the island collapse into a major national security threat if Cuba's leaders are unwilling to or unable to act. So,
is committed to pursuing a diplomatic solution if possible, but will not let the island collapse into a major national security threat if Cuba's leaders are unwilling or unable to act.
Yeah, because we're definitely not doing a regime change in Cuba right now.
President Trump is reportedly considering a range of options from U.S. military intervention to U.S.-led regime change.
You hear
there we go.
Cuba
I guess they are going to come out and admit it. Well, hey, at the end of the day, I'm kind of for taking Cuba because at the end of the day, it's like Cuba kind of is able to exist because of us. Although I believe in obviously independence and sovereignty for each nation. At the same time, it's like, we kind of need it, and Cuba, we kind of pay for everything for them. At the same time. However, they do have a better healthcare system than the United States, which is crazy.
Next.
Even Cuba's president,
at least they used
wary
to.
of U.S. threats, says at this point diplomacy
Maybe not anymore,
and dialogue
right?
with the Trump administration would be, quote, difficult given the changing nature of American foreign policy.
Cuba has always stood by its commitments, and the United States have not fulfilled its part of the deal.
President Obama ushered in the Cuban thaw of 2016, opening up Americans' access via travel and investment. But subsequent administrations restricted that access, much to the apparent dismay of Obama's inner circle.
Biden was a chicken and was afraid to go back to the Obama policy.
A senior official
That's what
confirms
they
to
cut.
us tonight
That's
that
funny.
that delegation met with Fidel Castro's grandson, who is 94 years old, while on the ground in Havana. They also tell us the delegation
Fidel Castro's son is 94 years old. That's insane.
made demands of Havana, including major reforms like opening up the internet and making sure going forward that they agree to release at least some political prisoners, Brett.
So there you have it. The United States is taking over Cuba simultaneously as we are taking over Iran, as we are taking over Venezuela, as we are taking over Greenland soon. I think that'll be after crypto and everything that happens with that. Maybe even next year. Who knows what happens with Greenland. But I do know at the same time we have all of these different annexations happening, right? We have Israel, again, taking Lebanon and Gaza, which Trump and the United States will be benefiting from via the Abraham Accords, which is what Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff have been negotiating upon. And for that specific land, for those Abrahamic Accord, that real estate. And they want to build what they call New Gaza on top of the ashes of all of these, Gazans that have already been killed, slaughtered, holocausted. So as the Jews continue holocausting Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and Iran and innocent civilians, bombing Iranian schools, children, and then we say, yeah, America, yeah, Israel. Well, you kind of lose the sight of the fact that they can do this to us at any time if they wanted to. And if there's no rules, if there's no laws, and if it's really just, whoever can be the most barbaric at whatever time, then where is the governance? Where is the law and order? Where is the actual, supremacy? Because I don't see any. I see two dying empires, the United States and Israel. And maybe you can even call them one empire. The Judeo-Christian empire of the United States and Israel, I believe, is ending. And the new empire of Catholicism in America is rising. And around the entire world. There's never been a higher record of Christian conversions and Catholicism, all of these things. So lots of big developments happening. The question is, how are you handling it, and what do you think about all of it? This is Jonathan Greenblatt. I mean, honestly, if you think that you live in a country today with free speech, then just take a look at the CEO of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, who says he is in the process of having all of Nick Fuentes' supporters and accounts banned from Instagram and Facebook due to hate speech. He says only he can decide who Americans are allowed to listen to and watch. We found hundreds of his accounts that continue to push out his videos. Wow. So if you like Nick Fuentes and if you post some of his stuff, then you're just going to be banned from Facebook, Meta, and Instagram and all of it. They get to decide and you don't. The Jews have all the authority over what you're allowed to say and what you're not.
means they're not even enforcing their own policies. So let me give you some.
Totally stomping on the freedom of speech, by the way. This is the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, press, religion. These people are destroying it all because they're not Americans. They don't understand our constitutional ways. They don't understand our constitutional government. They want to dismantle it and destroy it. Actually, they do understand it. That's the thing. They do understand it better than the average American. And so they're exploiting that. They're exploiting our First Amendment and using it against us, and basically using the term of anti-Semitism as basically a Trojan horse to destroy your freedom of speech, a Trojan horse to break through the lawfare and to be able to just silence you, to shut down your social media account, to, if you say anything on Facebook or YouTube like I'm saying now, you get arrested. You get a Facebook ban, 5 years in prison, $1,000 fine, whatever, maybe even worse, right? This is what these people want to do.
Examples.
Listen to this.
And we look at hundreds of posts, accounts, you name it. Like, for example, Nick Fuentes. So he's a very well-known, really revolting neo-Nazi social media.
He's not, though. Nick Fuentes is not a neo-Nazi. We're defending Nick Fuentes because that's not true what Jonathan Greenblatt just said. He just labeled somebody a derogatory term that is extremely, extremely a hateful term, by the way. And you're putting a target on somebody's back when you call them that. And you can't call somebody a neo-Nazi when he is a Catholic. Nick Fuentes is a Catholic. He believes in Jesus Christ, who was a Jew. And then you're going to go and call him an anti-Semite? No, you just don't know what a Semite is. Okay, Jonathan Greenblatt, do you understand that the Palestinians that the Israelis have killed have more Semitic DNA than the Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews today in the United States? And you, Jonathan Greenblatt, look pretty Eastern European to me. And you're over here calling yourself more Semitic than the people you are genociding in Gaza, the people you're genociding in Lebanon. They have more Semitic DNA than you. And so why don't you take a DNA test, Jonathan Greenblatt? Why don't you actually say what is true instead of trying to silence the truth?
Influencer, but it's banned from the platform, which I don't think you don't get much credit from me for banning Nick Fuentes. I mean, it's kind of common sense. So, but
look at how proud they are to just ban you, to just ban somebody for their hard work, for their ideas, even if those ideas are true. And again, totally unhateful. You listen to Nick Fuentes, everything he talks about it's strictly on the foreign occupation of the United States by AIPAC. And that's why they want to silence Nick Fuentes and label him as something he's not. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting and maniacal. And it needs to be dismissed completely. Because if they can do this to Nick Fuentes or Alex Jones or Candace Owens or Megyn Kelly or Benny Johnson, they can do this to any of the great influencers, to Andrew Tate. They can do this to anybody, right? If they're going to do this to Joe Kent, who has very much every reason to be a president of this country, who has every standing to, former special forces, served his country, true patriot. Yeah, he works in the CIA, whatever. You know, it depends on what you think about the CIA, but in my opinion, the CIA is not all bad. A lot of them started off as patriots. A lot of them are patriots today. There's just more of an entanglement between the CIA and the Mossad, which is which used to be called ISIS, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, weirdly enough. And then you have the people like Jonathan Greenblatt who say, no, you can't say anything about the Israel war. You can't say anything about Israel. You can't even say the word Jew or Jewish, Zionist. These words, you can't say it because they're full of hate unless you're Jewish. Unless you're talking highly of them, then you can say it. So you basically, if you don't say what the Jews want you to say, then you're just going to be banned. And you're going to be fined. And your entire life's going to be destroyed just for criticizing this apartheid state, which believes in genocide, which believes in truly everything that they're so against with Hitler. They hate Hitler so much, they hate the Nazis so much, but they're doing everything they said he did, everything they said the Nazis did, everything they said Hitler did. This is what they are doing. They are doing everything that was done upon them to their people, and now they're just gaslighting. And they're using the World War II narrative to make them the innocent victims who just wipe off their hands and say, oh, we did nothing wrong. See, Holocaust, remember? Can't say nothing, guys. We suffered from the Holocaust. You can't say nothing. Haha. And that's what that is. And if you do say something, 5 years in prison, $10,000 fine. Insane. So this is the war we're against. This is what Netanyahu is talking about when he talks about the Eighth Front War and the social media war. This is what it is. Battling the lines of censorship, the lines of information, the truth, right? Before, you have no ability to speak the truth at all. Before you have no First Amendment and then no Second Amendment, like the UK, where they don't even have the Second Amendment to defend their opinions, right? They can say anything they want, but they'll still be arrested for it. If they say anything about the state of Israel or the genocide happening, Zionism, they will literally be thrown in jail and in prison because they do not have the First Amendment. And even if they wanted to have a First Amendment, they don't have that because they have no Second Amendment, no right to keep and bear arms against a tyrannical government, which is why America exists, which is why we started what we started, which is why our ancestors came here. So for this guy to come over here and tell us that we can't have an opinion, F that. I say we double down, we triple down. And don't be rude, you don't be hateful, because then you just give them what they want, but you tell the truth and you say what is right. And what is right and what is factual, that is what needs to be reported.
And him, we found hundreds of accounts that continue to push out his videos. So whereas his account isn't there, we found accounts with well over 1 million followers pushing out his Groyper videos on a daily basis. So Fuentes continues to populate and propagate his poison on Instagram, despite this sort of cosmetic kind of policy that they've taken. They're not even enforcing their own policy. They get over 100 accounts with millions of followers pushing out Nick Fuentes garbage every single day.
So if you don't like something that, you know, if they don't like something that you say, then basically they have the right to basically just silence you and ban you forever. Okay. We see how it works. We see what's really going on here, Jonathan Greenblatt. Breaking news, Iran's military is now defending its decision not to fight back when U.S. troops boarded and seized one of their ships. Iran's top military command pointed to civilians on board. They faced the constraints. Family members were in danger at the moment. The U.S. Navy fired on the Iran-flagged MV Tosca tanker in the Arabian Sea on Sunday, disabling its engines and later seizing the vessel. Watch the dramatic video of the moment the U.S. troops seized this ship. So this is badass. Check this video out. Again, just going to give credit to Fox News here for this footage. Looks like we got a Black Hawk in the middle of the night. We got the night ray vision. Maybe this is SEAL Team 6. Maybe it's the 160th Special Aviation Regiment. Maybe it's the Marine Expeditionary Force. I believe this was the Marines who carried out this op. I think this would most likely be the Expeditionary Marines. Pretty clean op right here. So apparently they struck a specific area of this ship that basically destroyed their ability to move at all. So pretty powerful. Israel's Knesset member Avi Moaz, head of the Noam party, calls for the removal of U.S. flags while Congress members openly display Israel's flag. I call on whoever hung up the flags up the road to Jerusalem to remove the American flags. The state of Israel is a sovereign and independent state, not a... Okay, look at this. Look at this. So again, all of the boomers are going to tell you how, you know, America must fight for Israel, must serve and die for Israel. But then you see these videos. What do you think about this? You look at the halls of Congress, you have Israeli flags everywhere, but no American flags. You got an American flag, but you got more Israeli flags. I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel everywhere. I stand with Israel. Behind every single politician here, Bill Posey, Israeli flags everywhere. And you want to tell me that Israel doesn't run the United States? You want to tell me that Israel is completely sovereign and independent from America? I don't know about that. They certainly are trying to be, and they're trying to use the American taxpayers to do it. That's what they want. Unbelievable. Look at the power in your halls of Congress in D.C. And if you say anything about this, you're an anti-Semite. You're hateful. You are not a Christian, apparently. Unbelievable. Not good. Not good. But we got people fighting back, and that's the important thing. So at the end of the day, what do you think about all of this? I think it's absolutely just unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. China has announced we went through that. As we go through some of these other stories, the UAE has informed the U.S. that if it runs short on U.S. dollars, it may be forced to use Chinese yuan or other currencies for oil sales and transactions. This is why the crypto community is telling Trump, hey, you need to get on board with crypto, because the company Ripple, XRP, for example, is already a United States company working globally in Japan, has the capability of working really in any country. And you have all these other countries today that want to move with China. I don't know about that. So this is why America does need to be at the forefront of crypto, or we are going to be eaten alive by the Chinese, who will get it first, who will get there first. Whether or not you like crypto, you got to get used to it. You got to be able to adapt and endure to the unpredictable twists of fate and time. A very powerful explosion has just occurred at one of the Bucharest's main thermal power plants. Over 30 tons of fuel at the site have been ignited. No further details are available at this moment. Crazy, look at that. Some people just want to watch the world burn. How many more have to die, right? How many more people have to die for this war to go on? How many times do we have to keep hearing from Trump that Iran has a nuclear weapon, regurgitating the same exact talking points as Netanyahu? How many times do we got to hear that before we actually have a real strategic military decision here? Breaking the can, a senior Israeli official said the United States and Iran are not close to an agreement, and that Israel is ready to return to war in Iran with American approval. We are all waiting for Trump, but the sides are not close to agreement, the official said. U.S. President Trump told PBS that a deal would be signed today in Pakistan, but warned that if the ceasefire expires tomorrow evening without an agreement, many bombs will be launched. Iranian President Mossad Pezeshkian said Americans seek Iranian submission, but Iran does not surrender to force. So check this out. Crazy. So this war ain't stopping anytime soon. I think everybody realizes that. I think everybody should realize now that this war is probably going to be going on for the foreseeable future, for at least the next few years. That's kind of what I predict happening. But what do you guys think? Breaking: Russian authorities detain and interrogate 40 Israeli officers, soldiers, and citizens, including dual nationals, at Moscow's Domodedovo airport immediately upon arrival from Tel Aviv. Israelis media says that the detention lasted for 5 hours without water, food, or access to facilities, with strict treatment from Russian security. Russian security direct accusations of the detainees of committing war crimes in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. They forced them to unlock their personal phones. They were released after signing papers and warnings preventing any espionage activities or violation of Russian law. Geez, how much power do these people have? They were released after signing papers and warnings preventing any espionage activities or violation of Russian law. Insane. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs described what happened at the Moscow airport as absolutely unacceptable. Crazy. So, what do you think about that? Russian authorities detaining and interrogating 40 Israeli officers, soldiers, and citizens, and then they just let them go. Just let them go. Isn't that interesting? No accountability, nothing gets done. The CEO of Binance just said something most people in crypto don't want to hear. The industry is too transparent, and it's actually a huge problem. Institutions/whales don't want transparency. They want to benefit from blockchain's efficiency, whilst having the same privacy-preserving elements that traditional rails offer. So, yeah, I mean, that is very true.
Now, the crypto industry, to be honest, is too transparent.
And again, crypto is going to be so important for this entire American future, global future, whatever country you live in that you're watching from, whatever state. You have to understand that crypto is going to be the thing that pulls America out of its $39 trillion of debt. And with that, it's also going to allow the entire rest of the world to become enriched and have some kind of form of, wealth and prosperity. And a lot of these countries don't have access to crypto because the United States has not really been given clarity on crypto, ourselves. So the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC, has gone to every extent to essentially stop this entire innovation from happening. No crypto, no growth, no movement, and basically they're just allowing it all to die. So let's listen to what he has to say here.
Crypto funds, like the blockchain is a public ledger, and then if you couple that with a few centralized exchanges KYC information, you can track most of the transactions pretty accurately. So I think right now there's a lack of preserving of privacy. But right now the problem is many of the regulators and law enforcement people don't know how to use it yet. Some people do. I think some of the U.S. law enforcement actually knows it quite well. In other countries, they know
That's me.
They know it much less. So hopefully we'll get to a balance where I don't know where the optimum balance is, but there should be an optimal balance where we satisfy all the regulatory requirements, but we also need to protect individual privacy.
Yep.
Right? For example, I'll give you a couple examples.
Please. 100%.
For example, like if your company pays everybody in crypto, and if you get one payment today on the blockchain, you can just trace to the address that paid you and see how many addresses that address paid in the last week. You can figure out everybody's salary.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a privacy issue.
Yeah.
And if you stay at a hotel, you pay for the hotel, then people know where if people know your address and the hotel address, people will know that you're going to stay at that hotel, which for some people may create security issues. Right. So there's little problems like those that are not solved yet.
And I think all of that's going to get solved.
We need to strike a balance. It's hard to say exactly where the balance is, but I think.
Yeah, and I think that's totally going to happen. I think there's just no way around it. I think it's absolutely got a lot of good things coming. Now, the U.S. Senate has just confirmed Trump judicial nominee Andrew Davis as federal U.S. District Judge for Western District of Texas, 47-46. LFG, another confirmation to cancel out activist judges. Trump needs all of his judicial nominees approved ASAP. So, again, what do you guys think about this guy? What do you guys know about him? I don't know too much about this guy. Maybe we'll learn more in the coming weeks. We'll keep an eye on it, right? 3 minutes before ceasefire, Israel bombed Tyre in southern Lebanon. They hit a residential neighborhood of 70 people. 16 bodies have been pulled out, with more still under the rubble. A town's deputy mayor called it out as a massacre. A Sputnik correspondent documents the scene. So here's what they had to say about that. Crazy story. Look at that. That's so horrible and evil. Awful. Imagine if that was your home.
المجزرة اللي صارت بمدينة صور آخر 3 دقائق من قبل وقف إطلاق النار أو دخول وقف إطلاق النار حيز التنفيذ. يعني هيدي المجزرة من أكبر المجازر اللي صارت during
the war, he says.
بهيدي الحرب كان حي
It was a safe area full of residents, around 70 people. So far, around 16 bodies have been recovered, but people are still missing under the rubble. Around 5 to 6 people were killed and 35 have been found. One injured person remains inside the buildings, and 40 others are wounded in surrounding buildings. The strike was extremely brutal and barbaric. We hope the people of Tyre will return and find joy again. Their joy has been mixed with pain and grief, and every day, every time we go out, we bury another victim. Unfortunately, this is the enemy, and it is their method. First of all, they target innocent civilian, women, and children. That's a fact. But we also say, thank God, people have returned, although with caution, of course. The situation in the city remains such that most of the population has not returned. We are waiting for the deadline to expire to see whether it will be extended or not. So imagine that was your apartment complex, your hometown, your home. Imagine this was Los Angeles. This looks like it could be off the coast of Los Angeles to me. Our blood was part of the initial response to the strike that happened in the city of Tyre. We had more than 40 young volunteers with special skills on the ground engaged in rescue work and firefighting. Ambulances were ready. 18 people were pulled out alive from under the rubble in the first minutes of the rescue operation. Children, elderly people, and people with disabilities. We have nearly completed our work. We counted around 54 injured people. The injured were taken to local hospitals with the wounds ranging from light to heavy. For the third and fourth day, we have continued our work as the rescue team, and bodies under the rubble are still being found. Absolutely satanic. There's something very evil about this. This is what the Israelis did. The United States, yeah, you can say that, yeah. But I would say Israel had way more to do with it than the United States. We have a corrupted president. We have a president who is blackmailed. We have a president who, I believe, at least, is blackmailed by the Epstein files, or whatever the situation is, or he's just running this entire thing. But based on the looks of it, it's been Israel who's been, attacking Lebanon and these Christian villages and really targeting Christians in particular. Even the Pope just spoke about it. here on the Tire Seafront in the final moments before the ceasefire came into effect. The sound of Israeli airstrikes suddenly rang out, targeting several residential buildings. Within seconds, an entire neighborhood was reduced to rubble after buildings collapsed on residents. In a scene reflecting the agony of the final minutes before the expected truce. As in previous cases, these strikes in the last moments before the ceasefire left behind bloody scenes and a reality weighing heavily on Lebanese memory. And that's exactly what the Israelis wanted, where the final moments were less brutal than what had come before them. Terrible. So what do you guys think about that story? Russia sent nuclear-capable Tu-22M3 bombers on a 4-hour cruise over the Baltic Sea, and NATO had jets in the air within minutes. Swedish Gripens led the intercept, shadowing the Russian formation multiple points along the route. Su-35s flew escort to the Russian side. Moscow says everything stayed within neutral waters and followed international rules. NATO scrambles every time these bombers appear near Alliance airspace because they can carry nuclear weapons and they can fly close to Sweden, Finland, and the Baltic states. Routine patrol or deliberate message to NATO's northern flank. So that's what's going on today. This was 7 hours ago. Pretty interesting. Going to be a long war. I predict this war will be heading up to at least at a minimum 2030, 2025, or I'm sorry, 2028 to 2030. It's my prediction based on where we're at now, based on the doomsday clock, based on the countdown, all of it, based on the Pentagon, CENTCOM, the Department of Defense, the DIA. It appears to me, and the CIA, it appears to me that this war is going to continue on for the foreseeable future for at least a few months. So we will see what happens. As we continue looking through Twitter and analyzing the new algorithm, Instagram model Claudia Glam has reportedly passed away after being run over by a car outside a nightclub in Soho, driven by a rival society media star who has not been named yet. Videos of the incident went viral on social media, with bystanders being heard shouting, "She is going to run her over," before Claudia was trapped under the car. The influencer, who has over 260,000 followers on Instagram, was rushed to a nearby hospital. LBC reported that Claudia had been in critical condition on April 20th, with a 29-year-old woman being arrested on attempted murder, grievous bodily harm, dangerous driving, and drinking and driving. She has been taken into custody. So again, this is the footage of this. So I have no idea who this person is. I have no idea anything about pop culture, any of this, but it is still a big story, and it's quite gruesome. But viewer discretion is advised, obviously. I know we kind of already accidentally watched some of that, but this is the story. What do you guys think? So it looks like that girl was over at this black car. Let's just rewind it one more time. I don't know who's who. I want to watch this, though. So who's in the car? So it's like, who's who? So is this the lady who just fell on the ground? Is that the lady who got ran over? That's what I'm trying to figure out. She charges her. Might not be her, by the way. Might not be the same girl. I'm just trying to figure this out. It's the girl who gets run over. So yeah, obviously we have that altercation. Fighting. They're screaming. Got all the doctors and engineers celebrating it, laughing, having a good time. NPCs completely unaware of anything. Then she gets back in her car. Okay, so I guess the girl who first got out of this black vehicle wasn't the girl? It's this girl right here. Okay, now I see. So she gets... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. So she gets totally run over. Then the lady backs over her again. How brutal is that? Again, we're going to rewind that a little bit. Viewer discretion. So again, here she is. She's sitting right here where my cursor is. She's walking right in front of this car. Maybe not the wisest move, but even still, how evil. That this lady runs into her with other people in front of the car. Then here's this guy on his bike. Oh, look at this. You got this guy on his bike over here, right behind her. Right here. This poor guy. He got hit too, and his bike. And then she gets run over a second time. Gets reversed over. Looks like the lady that was in the other car fled. There's our Instagram model on the floor. Yeah, she definitely got knocked out. And then again, we have this guy over here too, who's on the floor after he just got smacked by this car. The guy on the bike. Everybody is more concerned about the Instagram model than the guy on the bike who just got smacked. No, obviously we know why. But this is brutal, though. This is what happens when you live in the city. That's all censored out, of course. Beautiful lady. And because she was in the city, you wanted to be liberal, she wanted to have a good time. God forbid you want to have a good time in America, you're going to get run over by somebody. Stay safe out there, folks. Justin, Apple CEO Tim Cook steps down as CEO, and he will be replaced by John Ternus. Ternus, Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, will become Apple's CEO effective on September 1st, 2026, according to Apple. It has been the greatest privilege of my life to be CEO of Apple and to have been trusted to lead such an extraordinary company, Tim Cook said. I love Apple with all of my being, and I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with a team of such ingenious, innovative, creative, and deeply caring people who have been unwavering in their decision to enriching the lives of customers and creating the best products and services in the world. John Ternus has the mind of an engineer, the soul of an innovator, and the heart to lead with integrity and with honor. He is a visionary whose contributions to Apple over 25 years are already numerous to count, and he is without question the right person to lead Apple into the future. I cannot be more confident in his abilities and in his character, and I look forward to working closely with him on this transition and in my new role as executive chairman. So there's Tim Cook chowing down, living rich, retiring, enjoying the billions and billions and billions of dollars he's made from Apple and giving us the same phone for since Steve Jobs' death pretty much. Never a new phone, just a new button or two. But that's where we're at. It looks like we're starting to see repeating stories here. A fiery statement from the highest Christian religious authority in the world, Patriarch Bartholomew I, the supreme spiritual leader of 300 million Eastern Christians worldwide. He says, Israel is a blight like a cancer eating away at the body of the region, spreading destruction and ethnic cleansing, and America is a partner in its crime, and they will pay together the price of destroying global peace. Unfortunately, I think that's very true. I think it's true. Thanks to Donald Trump and the Epstein files and his decisions and those around him to get us into this war and to bow down to Israel and to be just Shabbos Goy for Israel, we are in this situation where the entire world hates us now. We were the liberators of peace. We were the nation who used to fight terrorism. Now we are the terrorists. Really, I mean, that existed in Iraq. With George W. Bush fighting terrorists, bringing us into Iraq, go and get that oil because we got to go fight the terrorists for 9/11. America. Yeah, well, that didn't work out so well. And when you look at all of that, it looks like the whole world, including the Orthodox Christians in the Eastern Hemisphere, are not too happy with America.
Iran's agreed to that.
Here's a little statement from Trump. Iran officials contradicted or failed to back up Trump's biggest claims about their war.
Nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully. They've agreed to give us back the nuclear dust that's way underground because of the attack we made with the B-2 bombers. So we have a lot of agreement with Iran, and I think something's going to happen very positive.
We'll see. We'll see if he's right about that.
Pakistan is a nuclear power. They've been brokering the talks. They're pointing out that Israel continues to break the ceasefires. Here's the Pakistan ministry demands Israel withdrawal from all occupied territories. Don't forget, they're actually a nuclear power and have a lot of high-tech missiles and reportedly hundreds of hydrogen bombs. Here's some of what the Pakistanis had to say.
Call for Israel's immediate, full, and unconditional withdrawal from all occupied Lebanese territories.
Yeah, we covered this video last week.
Sustainable calm requires the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701 and unwavering respect for Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity along the blue line.
They're not going to do that.
a contingent of what you call more modern neocon MAGA, Trump's former enemies, literally coming out and saying those of us that are trying to get Trump to stop these disastrous policies for the economy and world peace and
Yeah, they're saying we're not MAGA.
we're the traitors.
Ridiculous.
And I see this sophomoric thing constantly where they go, oh, you're kicked off the Trump train. Trump fired you. Ha, you're not in the cool club anymore. What does that even mean?
Right.
I like Trump because he was better than Democrats. Could care less about Trump liking me or being in some cool club where everything he does is pure genius. We're all supposed to worship it and act like sycophantic.
Totally true.
I mean, that's how the Democrats would act when they would say that Joe Biden's, this is the best Joe Biden. He's as smart as he's ever been. He's a total genius. You know, two men can have a baby. All of this
complete nonsense.
garbage is the reason I've hated the Democrats so much. But here's the good news, and it's the bad news. It's very paradoxical. 80+%, and that's Rasmussen and other various scientific polls, of independents that voted Republican are now voting Democrat.
Look at that.
Or for another party. Trump swept independents. Under 45 men, he's lost over 40% of them. Unprecedented. Trump's overall approval rating of how he's handling things, 33, the lowest ever, down from 56. So
Not
the good
good.
news is it's a minority of Republicans that actually buy this garbage and love Mark Levin being the shadow president and the real president being Benjamin Netanyahu and the press secretary being Ben
Couldn't have said it
Shapiro.
better myself. It's exactly what's happening.
Paradoxically, okay, good Republicans aren't in a cult. We don't follow leadership when it's doing bad things. We have moral integrity. We supported Trump because he was the vessel that was doing what he was supposed to. A tool.
And then he changed. He totally went 180 degrees, the complete other direction, right? The complete other direction. And it's just crazy now. We have a completely different president who is basically a Democrat now.
But paradoxically, the fact that it is so unpopular.
Look at that. Look at that image. Like, that is your president, President Trump. And this was this picture of. This picture is a picture of Mark Levin with his hand around Trump, and that moment was when Levin said, "This is our first Jewish president." And Trump said, "It's true. It's true." And basically he confirmed it.
That's why they're going to lose the midterms. And it's self-inflicted wound.
Badly. They're going to lose badly, I think.
Trump cannot be this stupid. They've been telling him for months this is happening, and he just doesn't care and tells them to shut up. I want to talk about other things.
Yeah. And I would say that's essentially what's going on. Pretty good summary there, ultimately. And this is Candace Owens. This is recent. 2 hours ago, Tyler Robinson's grandfather speaks out on Candace Owens' podcast. Just when you thought the official narrative couldn't get any more absurd, Candace Owens just dropped a massive bombshell in tonight's episode. She has exclusive audio from the grandfather of Tyler Robinson, the original owner of the rifle that the feds claim was used to assassinate Charlie Kirk. We need to talk about the magic rifle for a second. The highly trained bomb dogs completely missed it. Did their noses just malfunction that day, or is it just a coincidence that the feds managed to lead rookie local cops directly to the weapon after the area had already been searched and cleared? Candace is asking these questions, and so let's take a listen to this clip. What do you guys think?
All right, you guys, happy Monday. A super happy Monday, actually, because I'm out of my boot, finally. I'm free. And, of course, we go off air on Friday, and then Trump begins tweeting me again from Air Force One this time. I honestly am not quite sure what triggered his little meltdown, but apparently he says, I am dying fast. So I got to get my affairs in order. 2 tweets from the leader of the free world about how I am a nobody. I think that's 4 tweets in total. I feel like maybe the opposite might be true. But first, we have exclusive audio of Tyler Robinson's grandfather, the original owner of the rifle that was found after Charlie Kirk was killed.
This entire case, by the way, just being a cop myself and being in law enforcement, you should be asking questions. There are so many reasons to ask questions, so many inconsistencies. And in my opinion, when I looked at Charlie Kirk's assassination, that day when it happened, to me, it reminded me of everything you saw with JFK's assassination. That's everything we saw. Same thing. And same kind of thing. right? The same optics, the same, live on television, the brutality of it, every bit of it, right? A public event, a American event, all these things. It was a total terrorist event. And I do believe that there are, a lot of things that the FBI has right with their investigation with Tyler Robinson. And then I also think that there are things that need to be deeper looked at, a deeper analysis, deeper investigation, all of that. It's critical to finding the truth of this. And that's just kind of where I stand on this. So what do you guys think?
That the bomb dogs couldn't detect because their noses malfunctioned that day. The one that the feds led the police officers to, the rookie police officers to, after the dogs had already searched that particular area. Wouldn't it be kind of interesting?
Well, a lot of times canines, law enforcement canines, are trained to sniff out either one thing specifically or a lot of things. But, sometimes guns might not even be that. But I would imagine, right, for Secret Service, why would they not have that? Secret Service and FBI, you would think that they'd have dogs that can hunt that down. So those are great points that she's making.
To hear what Grandpa thinks. Does he think Tyler Robinson is guilty? Do you think Tyler Robinson is guilty? Let's find out. Welcome back to Candace.
Yeah. So, I think all of that, I think Israel had a lot to do with it. And I don't know if Israel did it, but, considering what Charlie Kirk had to say, and when Charlie was saying that his entire security is like Israeli, he said that. He said, my security is a bunch of Israelis. And let me tell you, they know what they're doing. And it's just like, well, they sure seem like they might have if they had anything to do with that assassination, right? And you look deeper in on some of these guys, and they come from the Lion of the tribe of Judah, which is supposed to allegedly be the same tribe that Jesus Christ came from. So very interesting how all of this is happening and unfolding and all of these different things in general. Hallelujah, finally someone in Congress is stepping forward and acting like the adult in the room. Representative Anna Paula Luna. Today I referred any and every criminal record found regarding Minnesota fraud scheme to denaturalized, and sent for detainment in El Salvador's high security prison, CENTCOM. So let's take a look.
Citizens, if their application.
So finicky. There we go.
Naturalized. So I do just want to point out that there is a statute that you can denaturalize citizens if their applications were fraudulent, and also too if within 10 years of their naturalization that they committed fraud in the U.S. And so I take this very seriously, and it's very unfortunate.
Oh yeah, we got to see something done
about
this.
To do this because being an American citizen is not a right; it's a privilege.
Right.
Especially if you were not born here. And so with that
this video is just not loading.
Idea in mind, I would like to say that these criminals.
All right, we're just going to go to the next video. Yeah, so, that's happening with Representative Anna Paula Luna. Happy to see her doing that and talking out about it. Definitely important. A criminal mastermind in Italy, a hidden wall and 31 printers producing millions of fake euros across Europe. Italian police dismantled the most dangerous counterfeiting operation in the history of Naples, where a single man managed an industrial production line behind a secret electronically operated wall inside of his garage. He printed $11 million in 20s, 50s, and 100 euro notes, distributing 8 million euros across 10 European countries, mainly France. The European Central Bank confirmed the counterfeits were extremely high quality, with holograms and security features appearing completely authentic. Authorities seized 31 printing machines running nonstop, along with 3 million euros ready for shipment. The criminal alone was responsible for 27% of all counterfeit euros in Europe. Naples once again proves to be a capital of criminal artistry. Very interesting. And then in the meantime, of course, we have the United Nations urging the EU to suspend Israel's trade deal as citing legal obligations amidst findings of genocide and crimes against humanity. 1 million signatures support the call. So again, this is what Israel did today. What did you do today? This is what Israel did. Doesn't that look like 9/11? That looks really similar to the Twin Towers when the Twin Towers fell, didn't it? Wow, why is that? Could it be that the Israelis were behind 9/11? Could it actually be that the Israelis killed JFK? Could it actually be that the Israelis were the ones who got us involved in every single war? Could it be? Could it be? Could it be that this has been going on since the beginning of time with these people? Is this why they were kicked out of 109 different countries? Could it be? I think possibly. Breaking news, Russia Interior Minister Vladimir Kolokotsev, okay, let's try to get this. Koloko, I don't even know, arrives in North Korea for talks. So they're making moves. A video of a teacher has gone viral, and now there's mounting pressure for what the school should do and whether or not they should fire her immediately. So what do you think about this? Should she be fired immediately? I think so. This is why you pay taxes. I don't know. Seems like the kids are having fun. Okay, at the end of the day, though, I mean, it's like Japan is over there. China and Japan, they're over there. Their students, their kids are learning how to, like, literally put together, like, how to assemble firearms, the mechanisms. You know, they're practicing their 4 firearms cardinal safety rules, all of it. And then in America, we're, like, playing rap music in the public schooling systems. You see the difference now between the public schooling system you have today and what we used to have in America, what we could have in America versus what every other country has, why Americans are so dumb, and that's true. Most Americans are pretty dumb, right? Like, seriously. And it's like, and I like this. I mean, like, I like that the kids are having fun in the classroom. That's good. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, got to have higher standards for this country. And then, again, to be singing some rap song, it's like, really, why? Uh-oh. What's this? Nigel Farage says X is becoming a dangerous place. Nigel says he's making a British patriotic party. Nigel stands loads of migrants as candidates. People on X point out he's betrayed everyone. And Nigel cries to the lefty media asking them for help. Absolutely bloody pathetic. And that's what the Brits have to say. So let's hear.
Would add that the online abuse on X. The online abuse on X that our
The online abuse on X.
minority candidates are receiving is utterly appalling in every way.
It's utterly appalling in every single way. This Twitter X is allowing the people to have an opinion, and this Twitter X is allowing the American people and the British people to unite and to have ideas and conversations. It's absolutely bloody.
And if it was happening to any
Look
other
at
candidate,
look at how dramatic he is about it. Like, this dude's more concerned about Twitter and being offended on Twitter or whatever than his country dying and then facing the truth, which is that, you know, his country's dying. The United Kingdom is dying. And this is because of all of the migrants that are being just let into the country. Just come on right in. Diversity, diversity, diversity. It's our strength. And then meanwhile, there's no more white population in Europe anymore. No more white people. Like, they're all gone. And then we're just supposed to be like, well, that's okay. That's just diversity. When it's really like a mass genocide of an entire race, strategically, through poverty, through declining birth rates, through infertility, through poisoning food, all of these things. And then again, you have the demoralization, the psychological warfare elements. You have white European people today living on the streets in the UK because of these kind of people who are offended because people are waking up on Twitter.
from more established parties in the sense of their age, you would all be in total uproar. And I've not heard a single person comment on it. It really, really is bad. And X is now becoming a very unpleasant and very dangerous place.
And it's going to get worse, bud. You live in the UK. We live in America. And X is an American company, bud. So you just sit tight and you hang out in Britain, in the UK, let the Muslims take your country over, and keep putting people in prison for 10 years for a Facebook post while you're seeing little 8-year-old European girls getting raped. So F you, Nigel Farage, and because, what, you're offended the fact that people are waking up to the truth? Get ready. More of it's coming. The American people are coming after you, and not in a violent way, politically, legally, and lawfully, but we're coming after you, and we're going to destroy everything about wokeism, the liberal parties, Zionism, it's all going away. This is the last generation of it. So you should prepare for your exit. And that's all I can say. And you should also tread lightly because the people are waking up. And the people are not going to just sit back and tolerate it any longer. It's not going to. We're not going to live in the same country where, you know, everything is just a plain tyranny. Not going to happen. This country, this planet will have sovereignty and independence, and I think it'll happen in this generation. So this was 6 hours ago. I didn't see this yet. I'm glad this came across my feed. So this is what Trump had to say about crypto today, and what's kind of going on with that.
Signed executive orders to keep the United States at the forefront of artificial intelligence and to end Joe Biden's war on Bitcoin and crypto. We ended that war totally. That war is over. They were very hostile toward them until the very end, just because there's so many people on Bitcoin and crypto that just before the end, the SEC came out and they were being very nice. I was so nice to people because so many people were being indicted for no reason whatsoever. Very political group of people. That's all they did was they liked indicting people, but they were being indicted, and many of those indictments were dropped just before the election because they said, wait a minute, there's 100 million, 125 million people using this, and they didn't want to have, you know, all these people being voted against. But by the time they did that, it was too late. We had that vote entirely, I think. I think anybody smart that believed in
Thank
that.
God.
There were a lot of people believing it. Anybody that was smart voted for Trump. And they pulled the...
If Trump does this, this will be one of the best things that Donald Trump does in his presidency. And let me explain why. The reason crypto is so important for the future of not just Trump. Who cares about Trump? I care about the future of the United States of America. I care about the future of the American economy. I care about the future that our kids can live in. And what I love about this, the most important thing about this entire thing, this entire Clarity Act, all of this, and, you know, Trump, this rhetoric, it is fostering a, you know, platform for there to be real innovation in payments, financial technology, which allows for stable coins. And when, you know, you have these institutional investors and these banks buying up Bitcoin, God, geez, a little animated there. Buying up Bitcoin and XRP and all these different assets, then what you're going to see quickly is you're going to see a pretty powerful movement in price action, and you're going to see a movement of institutional investors and banks, and they're essentially going to put a lot of that money, their profits, back into fiat, back into you know, Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve. They're going to be putting a lot of that money from stable coins, and they're going to be putting it back into treasuries. And that's the idea, to lower down that debt, to refinance the debt. And again, real estate, the tariffs, that were all part of doing that. That was all part of doing that, at least allegedly, right? We know that Howard Lutnick kind of stepped in and screwed all of that up, and now he's going to be recouping a lot of that wealth. So we'll see what happens with crypto and all of this, but ultimately, this is good.
Indictments, and I see people that were indicted. I said, I saved your life. I saved your life. Because if they actually thought that I was doing it, they said, why is Trump doing it? Is he doing it for political reasons? I don't do anything for political reasons. I do what's right. I want to be in the forefront of every industry.
It's the right thing.
So
yeah, and that is what we need. That is absolutely what we need. So when you look at that, that's pretty good stuff. So ultimately, there's pretty much nothing left for the end of the night. Honestly, when we kind of see what else is going on, yeah, be sure to work with Gold Shark Media AI. This is just a little dummy account I set up so I can show you guys a little bit of the software. You want to run your business. You want to scale your business with lead generation, SEO, AI, promo. It's all here, right? Pipelines, lead capture. You have prospecting. You have proposals. You have client workspaces. So again, you're going to need to work on your clients' projects. If you're running an agency, you'll be able to do that all inside of here. Literally everything, your entire business is run right inside of this software. I don't know why more people don't use this, but I use it for myself and my own business. And again, tasks, notifications, everything you could possibly need for your business. Communications. You have templates. So if you need to quickly reach out to people, you got templates that are already built out. We got sequences that are already built out. Automations, right? That's what you need. You need fast speed. You need everything. Integrations and social publishers. You can post to your Google business, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. You got teams on here. So again, you can add your entire team, add everybody up. You got reports. You got attribution and ROI. Keep track of all of that. Your executive summaries. You have ROI calculators, right? You need to calculate your deal flow. How much money are you making in your software company? Let's say you're Larry Ellison, right? God, you're making annual upside of $6 million. It's amazing. You're making $497,000 a month. People make this. This is real money, right? This is real money. And you can actually have a real living with this, okay? So Gold Shark Media AI, goldsharkmedia.com. Okay, we have Google reviews. We have a whole system where essentially this will automate your entire review collection process. AI assistant, the pro feature of that. You have an AI app builder inside of here. And again, what's nice is that you're going to have me to work with also. So you have templates, you have domain guides here. Everything kind of teaches you how you need to do it, how you need to set up your DNS verification, your SSL and HTTPS certificates, basically all nerdy rhetoric, right? Your CNAME, your DNS. This is all for all the website developers and the website designers. Again, automations, activity, integrations. You get for your Slack channel, Microsoft, Sending Grid, Twilio. You can send in all your stuff that you need to prospect and get your new clients. Pipeline builders, it's got all of it. So you want to build like a fresh pipeline, you want to build a new system, boom, it's all right here. Your entire business can be run from one single software. And I think that's pretty awesome. And what's nice about it is that we also have a white label and branding feature here, which allows you to take all of our entire software, everything you see on the screen, and you'll sell it as your own to your clients, and then they can use it, and it'll be your brand on here on the top left, right? So you see my logo here. Well, it'll be your name, your company name, and then your company brand logo right here. So that's what white labeling is. Selling another software as your own with permission. And that's what we're giving you. Gold Shark Media AI gives you the permission to build all of this, okay? And then you can even build AI apps and all of this cool stuff. AI app builders, you can build ROI calculators, client intake forms, everything gets built up quickly for you with this. And then, of course, if you are investing in real estate, I'm a real estate agent, Brendan Ecker with eXp Realty. Be sure to work with me. You can email me at brendan.ecker@exprealty.com, and I will help you get your next house or sell your next house. I work with acquisitions or selling properties, whatever you need. But again, we got a lot of nice real estate here in Michigan. A lot of nice places for you to live. Okay, so here's the details from some of these, from just this house right here. This is $935,000. Nice kitchen. You got nice amenities, everything you could possibly need, really. 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, 3 full bathrooms. Again, pretty nice. Primary bedroom is a second floor, area 238. Pretty nice. So, yeah, I mean, I would recommend this for anybody getting to the real estate market, Don't be afraid to jump into real estate. Get yourself a life that you deserve. Buy land, they ain't making more of it, right? They're not making more land. As Mark Twain once said, buy land, they ain't making more of it. Or Tony Soprano, he also said that to AJ, remember? So yeah, you want to work with me, you want to buy or sell Michigan real estate, I'm your guy. I've been living here my entire life in Michigan. And again, I have a little bit of experience in the real estate industry, kind of grew up in the real estate industry, had a lot of family in the real estate industry. It's kind of just what I do. It's what I'm good at. It's kind of what I'm a nerd in. Just started in real estate like a little less than a year ago, but we've taken like 11 months to really just build everything up. Taken 11 months to really build up Gold Shark Media AI and PassREUSA.com, which is our online course for real estate agents. But again, you want to invest in real estate, you should work with me. You should really consider it. This is what I like to do, right? At the end of the day, you have to have a place to live. You have to have a way to make money. You got to have a way you got to have a place to put your head on the pillow. At the end of the day, you can be as busy as you want. And when you succeed in life, you got to be able to have nice things. And that is just true, in my opinion, I think. And so, why not consider buying some luxury real estate too? I'm also certified in luxury sales. Again, that's kind of what we work on here. $1.495 million in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan here. But this is one of the nicer houses I thought were pretty sweet. We'll just look at this real quick. We'll look at if it's a new thing we'll be doing on this live stream. We'll be checking out some real estate towards the end of the night. It's kind of a little slow because we're streaming right now. Trying some new things out. This might be a little too slow for the stream, but we'll see. Seems to be working now. So yeah, take a look at this property. It's $1.495 million, 218 Hillborough Drive in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And again, you want to get this house? You want to work with me to try to get it? we'll talk to the buyer, we'll talk to the sellers, what you could possibly need, right? And that's kind of what I'm going to do for you as your real estate agent, all of that. So, yeah, consider it. Work with me and let's get you your American dream. We'll do all of that. That's what I specialize in, right? We work with multifamily investors. We work with a little bit of everybody. And that's what the idea is. So with that being said, that's pretty much all I have for the rest of tonight. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed the news, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, support the information, support the show. I would appreciate it. And with that being said, we'll be back tomorrow night covering more news on the Iran war, covering everything that Donald Trump has been doing and accelerating this war, standing up to Netanyahu, or is he not standing up to Netanyahu? We'll see what happens, because Netanyahu he's not backing down to Trump. So I want to see what happens next. And again, all of this impacts economy and it impacts business and geopolitics. The most important thing about it is that it does affect your life. People say, well, don't worry about politics. Does it really affect your everyday life? And I say, yeah, I think it does. Mentally, when you go on Twitter and you see the videos you see, whether good or evil, good or bad, whatever you consume on social media is a reflection of the culture and the reality that we live in. So yeah, geopolitics and the Hollywood movies that we see and the books that we read, everything that we consume becomes us, and it is a part of our society. And at the top levels of power, in Washington, D.C., the Freemasons, the Jews, all of these individual sects of power, one of the things that they want you to do is to become very entrapped into this matrix, to become a cog in the machine, so to speak, rather than becoming an engine, your own vehicle, right? The driver to yourself. And that's what they don't want. They don't want that brain working like that. They want you in a state of, slavery, which is to work at a job you hate and to really do it as long as it needs to happen until you have $200,000. And that's net, or basically whatever is comfortable for you, so you could afford to live. And it's like, ideally, our country, the United States, was built for and by capitalists. This country was built for entrepreneurship, and it was built to start small businesses and for everybody to grow their pie by building businesses. And so that's what I'm a big, strong advocate of. I want people to grow businesses. I want people to scale their own businesses, become more entrepreneurial, and then more than anything, work with me in real estate. Real estate's a great place. It's a great place to park your money, right? If you have a little bit of extra money, you're looking to buy your first home, maybe you and the wife, whatever the situation is, work with me, Brendan Ecker. I work with out-of-state real estate investors too, so I'm happy to work with anybody that's watching, and we'll find you a nice property. But ultimately, it's like, what are we going to do about the United States, freedom, the world? Well, the best way to secure your freedom is to be telling the truth all the time and to believe in God, and to never back down, to never end the fight, to never give up. Because there's 50% of people who are going to quit. There's going to be the other 50% of people who don't quit. And then there's going to be that 5% of people who are going to get to the top 5. And then that 1% is going to win, which will be you, hopefully. So work with me. Again, be sure to smash the like button, share, comment, subscribe, support the info. We will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern with more news on geopolitics, geoeconomics, and how this impacts the future of where we're heading in the Star Trek kind of system. So again, support. And with that being said, I got nothing else. Stay prudent, stay powerful, and stay wealthy. See you next time.